So I'm David Adams. I'm a storage development engineer on the Dell side that contributes to XC development. So I'm going to go ahead and give a couple demos. So if there are specific things you want to see, definitely shout it out. So what I wanted to do was quickly go through our deployment. We're going to hit the high-level steps. We don't have quite enough time to go through a full deployment, but we'll hit that. Look at an ESX cluster, some of the day-to-day manageability that we would do there, how to create and provision the storage. And then if we've got time, I've got an Acropolis cluster as well that I'd like to demo some of the VM deployment and manageability that Nutanix has built into the Prism. And then last thing, we do have a demo for the rapid appliance recovery that Joanne talked about as it's implemented with XC currently. So when we're deploying the nodes, Joanne briefly touched on it. We've got a limited amount of configuration that happens on the customer site. For an ESX box, right now as it comes out of the Dell factory, it boots, runs automated scripts, I think it's either 2 or 3 reboots, I can't remember. So it's about 30 minutes until your nodes are ready to be joined to the Nutanix cluster, but it doesn't require any user intervention. So you can rack them all up, power on all the machines, go grab coffee, come back, and that's where we would get to the point where I'm going to pick up here. So Nutanix has a nice little applet that they've built to discover these nodes. And so what you're doing is you're discovering every CVM that's available. So I'm going to go ahead and just launch that. Because the thing is as the system comes up in your environment, you may have DHCP, you may not have it. You don't know what your CVM IPs are, hypervisor IPs, and stuff like that. So that's something that we set during the deployment, but it's kind of a pain to get to it originally. So that's where this Java tool comes in. So you can see here, so these are all the nodes in our lab that have been discovered. So all the ones over here are unavailable. So if I try to connect to one of those to create a cluster, it's going to say, hey, this guy's already part of a cluster. Go find somebody else. So what I would do is I'm going to launch the foundation instance that's running in the CVM from one of these, and then we'll get to look at that really quickly. So what he's doing is he's connecting to a port on the CVM, on an unconfigured CVM, and we get this UI. So Dwayne talked a little bit about the replication factor. So when we're creating the cluster, we're setting a cluster level max. So to go up to RF3, there's a minimum of 5 nodes for that cluster, so there are some requirements to be able to do that. But like he said, even if I set it the max for the cluster, I still get to configure that on a container basis, so I don't have to have everything at RF3 necessarily.
Sure. I don't know if I missed it, or is the CVM like KVM access? Is that what that is? Or is it something, I mean, is it a management port on the nodes?
So the CVM is actually the Nutanix, it's a virtual machine that runs.
So it's after everything's loaded up, it loads a VM or.
Right, so and that's one of the things that we install in factory. We run Nutanix's installer in our Dell factory to configure that CVM. And then we just have, the first boot up is really the hypervisor configuration.
Gotcha.
That we're not.
So is it on board? I mean, it's in the BIOS or on the board, it's baked in, the hypervisor?
So the hypervisor boots from the SATA DOM.
Okay.
So we have a separate boot device, and then all the hard drives are passed through the hypervisor to the CVM to be managed by the CVM.
Dell has the advantage of shipping ESXi right from factory, so they can actually skip this process and go to a web page and do it right away. We need to run through a foundation process on our boxes, so.
I was just trying to figure out if it was some sort of, in the BIOS or a KVM access, that it was intelligent enough to know that, hey, I'm a part of a cluster. I didn't realize there was actually a
right. There's actually the VM running it.
So that makes more sense.
And so that's what we're taking advantage of. So
I'll say this: Nutanix is a very, very, very transparent company. this team should know better than most. You just go out and look at YouTubes. You can watch YouTubes for hours and see everything we're going to demo here. You can go out and download the community edition of this software and set up your own little cluster with notebooks or servers. So there's a lot of ways to learn about Nutanix. I've personally never seen a company so transparent. So apologize we didn't get through the demos, but it's all available online if you just Google Nutanix and look at the YouTubes.
I was just curious more than anything, just because
you learned an acronym.
Well, I mean, he's showing all this stuff, how you provision and all that, and I'm trying to wrap my head around what's going on in the back end. So
we used to require IPv6 link local to provide the discovery.
Right.
But that Java app, we've actually switched to our own client server.
Right. Because that was interesting too, is that the Java was running and.
Yeah, and it prevents having to deal with the network team as far as deployment goes.
Right. And is it your own protocol as well?
Your
own protocol, so you can
proprietary.
It used to be MDNS with IPv6.
Okay.
I'll also point out another great resource. It's called the Nutanix Bible, and if you just Google Nutanix Bible, it was really meant for IT professionals to learn about Nutanix, and it kind of almost a blog. I think it started out as a blog, and now it's published online called the Nutanix Bible, and it'll go into depth, the architecture. I don't think Erasure Coding's in that one yet.
No, it's there.
Oh, it's there now. Okay, I've read it a couple of times. I haven't seen that piece, so it's another great resource for you.
There's some OpenStack, and I was reading that last night just to go over some things, and it actually has some 4.6 stuff in there. So if you scroll away, you can get a sneak preview.